Janelle Testa, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And you're the author of the book, Make a Home Out of You.
Yes,
And
it's a memoir.
yeah, it sounds really interesting. So yeah, please tell us more about the book and your experience that led up to you writing the book.
Sure, sure. So the book is mostly about relationship and drug and alcohol addiction, but there's some body image stuff weaved in there. So it's the idea that I made homes and substances, behaviors, and people instead of making a home in myself and learning to like be comfortable in my own skin. So by the end of the book, I figure out how to start to do that. Not perfectly, but yeah, it's a lot about recovery.
Okay. And what drugs were like, I think alcohol was mentioned. Like what drugs have you dealt with as far as drugs of choice and drugs that have been an issue? I mean, I know food is one of them, and alcohol.
So I'd say early days, it was like when I was a young teenager from 14 to 16, it was drugs. So it was like whatever I could get my hands on. For some reason, drugs were easier for me to get my hands on than alcohol. I guess maybe because my dad was a drug dealer and I was stealing them from him. But it was weed, opiates, ecstasy, coke, really anything I could get my hands on. And then from 16 to 21, it was alcohol. And I actually stopped drinking when I was 21 and I'm 32 now. So my using and drinking was only about 8 years, and then I've been sober for 10.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. So that's in the past. And did you ever get involved in any of these medication things like naltrexone or Suboxone and all those kind of things?
I didn't have to. My drug use was pretty short-lived and not that like I don't know. I wasn't using every day. I didn't get like addicted to opiates. I just was using them recreationally, so I feel lucky for that. And then the drinking, I just sort of went to AA and got better after that. I don't go to AA anymore, but I did go to AA for a long time.
Oh, okay. And what about the body image thing and the issues with food? Like, is that how long have you like found like are you managing that well? Are you comfortable with that now?
Definitely. So I wouldn't say it's food addiction. It was more eating disorder. So it morphed from anorexia to binge eating. And I dealt with a lot of just discomfort around like eating. Like I either ate too much or too little and couldn't find like some sort of healthy balance for me. And over the course of my sobriety, I've been able to work with dietitians, therapists, psychiatrists to deal with that as well. So I feel like I'm in a really good place with that. I saw a dietitian for years. I don't see her anymore because I feel good, but I found a lot of recovery through the health at every size movement, the idea that people at any size can take actions towards their health, that I don't have to focus on weight, I don't have to focus on food. I can just focus on like being healthy and what that means for me.
Yeah. Did you ever get involved with uh, what do they call it? Like Overeaters Anonymous or any of the related programs?
I went to one meeting and I found it pretty shaming. Like I don't know, I really try not to emphasize on weight. I try to emphasize on, like I said, healthy actions. So they really harp on weight there and harp on like a strict food plan. And none of that was really what the recovery route that I was taking.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I did an interview with someone about it was partly about Grace Eaters Anonymous, which is similar to Overeaters Anonymous, but I
Okay.
think the difference is that I think they carried on the food plan where Overeaters stopped doing a food plan. But
Interesting.
it was interesting. I mean, there was a lot of 12-step things and things about setting boundaries and dealing with relationships and things, not just the food itself and but dealing with things that lead a person to overeat.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's rarely about the substance or the whatever it is. Like my main problem was sex and relationships. So that's I actually went to Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous too, in addition to AA. And feel like that's really where I dealt with the root of my issues was it was relational more than it was substance.
Yeah, yeah. What were you ever involved? And maybe this is the thing, codependency. Being dependent on another person. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's something that a lot of people are dealing with, and maybe we don't understand what it is or how it works.
Yeah, codependency was and still can continue to be a huge issue. I think codependency isn't resolved overnight. I've been working on it for like I don't know, 7 years. But codependency looked like to me really like a lot of control within my relationship. So like wanting to control my partner, them wanting to control me, like feeling responsible for my partner and their life, or them feeling responsible for me, and just like this enmeshment where we sort of depended on each other to be okay. And that none of that works for me anymore. It feels gross. And so I'm really working on like having healthy boundaries in partnerships, having yeah, just responsibility for my own well-being and responsibility for my own self-care and self-soothing. Of course, it's okay to depend on, I think codependency can sometimes be thrown around a lot, like, oh, you shouldn't depend on others ever because it's codependent. I think there's a good balance, right? Like, it's okay to depend on others a little bit, but when it's your only source of dependence, that becomes a problem.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Um, and I think that's a difficulty for a lot of people with issues with relationships, bad relationships. And what about narcissism? Is that played into the story at all of what things that have happened to you?
No, I don't think so. I've been fortunate to not not deal with many narcissists. Mostly just people who are a little broken and codependent like me.
Yeah, yeah. Has the codependency like played in with the eating disorder or drug use in the past of like two people saying it's okay for you to do it because I'm doing it also?
Definitely. I remember in high school, I had a partner convince me to start selling ecstasy because he wanted us to have like a good access to it and good like make sure we had it all the time and like didn't have to pay for it. So yeah, I was like, okay, well he wants me to do that, so I'll do it with complete disregard to like my well-being and like what that would do to me.
Yeah, yeah, and so the problem during that time period was probably not so much the ecstasy, but the relationship issue.
Definitely, yeah. It was always about like because if I wasn't in a relationship, I was pursuing a relationship and like pursuing the next thing. And I think I was always like seeking, seeking, seeking. And there was like this void that I felt. So whether I was feeling that with drugs and alcohol or relationships or, you know, eating disorder patterns, it was always something. And
Yeah,
it continues to be. I shouldn't say that I'm not like perfectly healed. We play whack-a-mole in recovery that like you deal with something and then something else pops up and it's like, oh, here, I'm here to pay attention to now.
yeah, yeah. I thought for a second I thought you meant literally whack-a-mole because that's actually one of my favorite games. Uh,
Oh,
I think I can probably beat anybody at whack-a-mole, but I haven't played for a while, so I don't know.
that's awesome.
But yeah, I see what you mean though, like that, like maybe someone goes in recovery to stop using alcohol or drugs or both, and then they develop an eating disorder or they start smoking more, and
Yeah,
now you have a new problem to deal with.
exactly. So it almost never ends, but that's okay. That's like the layers of recovery.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess like nobody's finished with it. You're always like working on find I don't mean like you're looking for the next problem to solve, but there's always something to work on.
Right. And I go back and forth about like the term in recovery because I'm like, how many humans have trauma or some sort of addictive issue, whether that's with food or cigarettes or TV or something? Like I feel like we're all dealing with something. So I'm like, how much is the term in recovery useful? How much is it not? Like I do have addiction issues, so maybe it's useful. I don't know. I go back and forth about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely like there's so eating disorders are psychological or psychiatric issues that people should be seeing someone qualified to deal with that. One thing I've learned recently, I have a lot of patients that I work with in treating opioid dependence, but then I find that they also have other medical treatments that because I asking about what medications are you on, what doctors are you seeing, that a lot of people are now getting on medication. Now they have weight loss medications or weight management medications that are actually working for people as opposed to everything that's come up until now. And it's interesting though that people are reporting. It almost seems like when buprenorphine or Suboxone came out, it was kind of a miracle drug that it really worked well. But there was a lot of pushback from the whole rehab recovery industry. I mean, NA is against it. Narcotics Anonymous has an official position that they don't approve of methadone or
Oh,
Suboxone.
really? I wasn't aware of that. It's supposed to have no opinion on outside issues. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
they don't have. that's really interesting with NA, and I wish I could talk to like the top people and interview them and ask like what is, and I know that they don't all agree, that there's people that are within the organization, there's a lot of people that don't agree with that, but that's the official position, is they actually have documents. They have all these pamphlets that you can pick up in a meeting and you can find them online. And I think the one for methadone is actually called Bulletin 29, and that was from 1996, and it's very much against methadone. And there's more recent ones against any kind of medication for addiction. Uh,
Right.
and the thing is, though, if you take Suboxone, or actually buprenorphine, which is the ingredient in Suboxone, if a person takes it for pain, that's an outside issue. That falls under. They have a thing called I think it's called In Times of Need or something. There's a 42-page pamphlet that basically says if you're taking something for a medical condition, that's an outside issue and it's none of our business. But if the same drug is used for pain, it's outside. If it's used for addiction, then they don't approve of it, and you shouldn't be talking in meetings. You shouldn't be taking a service position. You shouldn't be counting clean time.
Oh my God, that's horrible. I had no idea that that was the case. Because
Yeah, and that's
AA isn't that way. AA has
yeah,
no opinion.
yeah. As far as I know, that's only NA. AA is different. AA, individual people and groups might have their opinions, but there's
Sure.
no top level position on that subject.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that. That's horrible. Because
Yeah,
drugs are so useful to people. My dad is on Suboxone.
yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. It is literally it's a miracle drug. It's not perfect. I mean, it's difficult to get off of if a person's been on it for a long time and they decide I'm ready to try life without it. I mean, it's not something that people have to be on forever. Everybody's different. Some people would feel comfortable staying on a small amount indefinitely, but there's also a lot of people that feel that they're done with it and ready to come off of it. And so everybody's different, but yeah, coming off of it is not easy, because it helps a lot with the addiction, but it creates a physical dependence, which is a whole different issue. Being physically dependent and getting sick when you try to reduce it.
Mm.
But it is something that can be managed, and there's new ways that they're coming up with. There's some doctors that are talking about using they have a shot version of it, the Sublocade, and there's another one called Brix 80, but Sublocade is from the same company as Suboxone, and it's a monthly shot. So some people have discovered that the shot can be a way to come off, like after you've done a year or more of Suboxone, that you could switch to the shot, and then kind of it's like a natural kind of long-term tapering solution, because a shot can take months or even up to a year to wear off. And yeah, it's really, I'm sorry to get off the subject of what we were talking about before,
No,
but
it's
yeah,
like really interesting. I had no idea about that.
but I think the medical treatments are so, it's interesting how people want like a treatment, and then a treatment comes out and then they're like, well, I don't know, maybe that's not a good idea. Like all these diabetes drugs that now we're finding out like treat weight management so well, and people are resisting them and saying like, you know, there's a shortage. Those should only be for the people with diabetes. There's a lot of problems with them. But really, I interviewed somebody recently, and she said it's made her for the first time feel like she's full. Like she never knew what it was like to feel full after eating, and doesn't binge anymore because she can eat and be done with it. And so I'm hearing good things about that. But and not that I'm recommending it to anybody, but yeah, but it is interesting though, like when there's a condition where there's support and psychological treatments and counseling and coaching are the only thing available, and suddenly there's a medical treatment that comes out. It's like revolutionary, but the establishment might resist it for a long time.
I personally feel mixed about Ozempic and those, and like I forget what the other ones are called, but because I don't always think that weight is the core issue. I think there's a lot of weight bias and there's a lot of that goes into medical teams, and I feel like it's more about like the actions that people are taking. Like it's more about, because I have friends that run miles and miles that are heavier than me, and I have friends that don't work out, smoke cigarettes, all this, and that are thinner than me. Like weight isn't the core issue. It's
Yeah,
like, it's more like the health actions that you take. So
yeah,
if Ozempic I have a friend that we had this conversation recently where I was like, oh, I feel weird about Ozempic, and she was saying that she struggles with emotional binge eating disorder, and that Ozempic is helping her manage those cravings, and she's not eating 4,000 calories before she goes to bed every night. And that's like, yeah, if that helps her, then that's great.
yeah. I think maybe it's possible that this is like a theory just popped in my head just now. That when a person has diabetes, that you can measure their blood sugar is high on average for over a period of time, and then they have pre-diabetes, where you can say, well, you're not diabetic yet, but we see that your blood sugar is a little bit high in response to taking eating sugar or whatever. They have tests where they can say, well, you're not quite diabetic, but you're on the verge of becoming.
Yeah.
And what if there's like a pre-diabetic, where there's no physical signs whatsoever, but there's a thing in the brain that's like pushing the person to that. And because apparently these things like Ozempic and the other similar ones work not only on the stomach and blood sugar and the pancreas and all these other areas, apparently works on the brain also to to help take away the sugar cravings and the carb cravings and make people feel satisfied with their food. So maybe that whole condition starts in the brain and like a pre-diabetic or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. My friend and I were just having this conversation where I was saying that the way that I healed my eating disorder recovery was by eating more, and not in a binge way, but like by eating breakfast, eating lunch, eating dinner, and eating snacks in between. Because my problem was that I was restricting and then binging. And like,
Yeah.
so I think for me, I didn't need something like that. But it's not to say that other people don't need something like that. Like, who am I to say whether or not that's a necessary treatment?
Oh yeah, everybody has their own path and what works for them.
Yeah.
But I can relate to the whole, over the years I've lost huge amounts of weight by following crazy diet plans of excessive exercising and like
Yeah.
I was thinking back to a diet I did years ago where I had like 3 protein bars a day, and that was like my whole, all I would eat, nothing else, and then go on the treadmill for an hour every day, and I think I lost like 50 or 60 pounds, and I'm like, everybody's all like congratulating me, like, wow, that was great, you lost all that weight, and then within a short time, I'm like gaining it all back again. I mean, I
Yeah,
over the
that's what
years,
I'm saying. It's about the actions that you take. It's not about the weight, It's like if
yeah,
you're restricting and militantly exercising, like that's not healthy either.
yeah, yeah, it's really, and that's the thing, it's hard to find, like a you know, I mean, for me, yeah, I guess that's the thing, working with professionals is the right thing to do because otherwise, if there's no plan, if I have no plan, I'll just go get completely out of control. Like, finishing people's food, food gets left around. I'm like, wow, that looks good on the plate. Like, why would they waste that? And yeah, I mean, it just, you know, just like when they say tracking a workout, when people work out and you should track your workout because otherwise you have no idea like whether you're making progress or not. I kind of agree with the idea, like, and this is something in that Gray Sheeters Anonymous program, is I think that they are very strict about tracking food, and some people are not in favor of tracking, but I don't know. What do you think about food tracking, like
I
weighing your
I
food? And
personally like absolutely cannot do that. I subscribe to like intuitive eating where like I pay attention to my body's hunger and fullness cues where I
yeah,
like and that's where eating enough comes in because if I let myself get to the point where I'm starving, then I'll binge and I'll eat a bunch of stuff and I'll feel bad. But if I'm like paying attention to my hunger throughout the day and I'm like, oh, I could use a snack in between meals and I'm like feeding myself enough, I'm able to like tune into that. So
yeah,
not everyone's able to do that though. So if you're not able to do that and food tracking helps you, then great. But for me, it's like really triggering. It reminds me of my Fitness Pal days where I was counting my almonds. Like it's really triggering.
yeah. Yeah, years ago, they Weight Watchers had a plan, and they over the year, every few years, they changed their plan. So for people that kind of go back to them, leave and gain weight and then go back and try Weight Watchers again, it's
Yeah,
always some new flashy plan, and they have all these like fancy, colorful pamphlets. And I remember they at one point they had two plans. One was I think like the core plan, and one was the old tracking plan. And the old plan was like where you track points, which is basically calorie counting,
yeah.
but using their way of calorie counting. And then I think it was called the core plan, and it was here's all the foods you can eat, and you don't have to keep track of them. But they did have a hunger scale. They had like a diagram showing I'm a little bit satisfied with my food. I'm a little bit hungry. I'm very hungry or very overfull. And you never want to be at either full end of the scale. You want to like try, always keep assessing yourself. I guess like in terms of the steps, like I think it's the 10th step, like where you're always like
Yeah,
monitoring your feelings or what's
taking
happening.
personal inventory.
Yeah, like I guess you're like always I don't know if it's the same thing really, but thinking like, am I a little hungry? Am I too hungry? And but at the same time, eating all these natural foods, things that are like high in fiber and like fruits and vegetables and lean meats probably. But you know, so they had a whole series of what they called the 0 point foods. I think actually that's how they do it now. I think they in their more recent plans they kind of combined and meshed them together where you have the 0 point foods that you can in theory eat as much as you want to, but you're not supposed to eat them. You know, like for example, like if you get like a big 3 pound bin of grapes, you know, even though it's a 0 point food, you can't just binge and eat the whole thing because it wouldn't work.
Right. Yeah, it's tricky. I don't know. I don't like the Weight Watchers point system, but it's just not, it doesn't work for me. Like maybe it works for other
Yeah.
people.
Well, it's tracking, and you know, tracking is like, I mean, honestly, even though I like it, I have not been consistent with tracking for probably more than a few weeks at a time, because it is like, you know, even when they make it as easy as possible, like they have, like I like an app now called Lose It, which is pretty good, and it's still annoying to have to type in the food or scan the food and everything. And sometimes you can pre-track, you can plan your food for the day, but you know, but yeah, if you know, my eating plan includes like, you know, getting a pizza. Nobody's watching how many pieces I'm eating. And I'm not tracking anything. Definitely, it's not going to work. I'll probably eat half the pizza at least. So I don't know. Sorry, I'm just. But yeah. So let's talk more about the book. Tell me about like what made you decide to write this book.
Sure, yeah. So National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, happens every November, and it's like it's a month where writers set out to write 50,000 words in 30 days. And it's like a just a worldwide thing. So I started to jot down my addiction stories and like my trauma stories and like early things that have happened in my life. I just started to jot them down for that. And I did 50,000 words of it. And the next year I did it again. And then the third year I was like, oh, I could do something with this. And just started to patch the stories together in like a linear way, and made a book out of it. And yeah, just the idea of making a home out of you came to me like in recent years, like the last 2 years, and it just felt like a thread that went throughout everything, like all the eating stuff, the relationship stuff, and the drug and alcohol stuff. Yeah, it felt like it was thematic throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. So that's like somewhere between 1 and 2,000 words a day.
Yeah, it's 1,600 words a day.
Oh, okay. Which I mean, you know, for people that think that's terrifying, it's manageable. You know, once you get used to it, um, you know, I mean, even 2,000 words a day. I mean, you know, it depends on the quality and if it's being part of a consistent book. But a person can write high quality. I think I read somewhere that Stephen King writes 2,000 words a day,
I
but
love
then you know he's also
that.
keeping track of all his characters and storylines and everything.
And
But
he's a professional writer. Like he does nothing but write. So there's that too. Like he doesn't have a job like most of us.
yeah, yeah. So now I saw somewhere that you have do you do digital marketing? I saw that you have a history of it, or is that what you currently do?
Yeah, yeah. I work for an ed tech startup in digital marketing. I have a master's in marketing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And do you work on the content side of things as far as doing writing?
I do. Yeah, I'm a content marketer.
Oh, wow. Okay. Like, would that be like more like blogs and SEO, or would it be more like copywriting, advertising?
It's more blogs, SEO, social media. It's that kind of content. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you already that 1,600 words a day was probably like fairly easy for you then.
It's hard because I write for work and then I go home and I write at night. So it's like sometimes I get a little drained, but yeah, I am used to writing a lot.
Oh, wow. Wow. What do you think of all this AI stuff? Like everybody's just like, you know, coming up with different ways to use AI to do their writing for them.
I think AI is so useful for so many things like ideating, catching mistakes, thinking about what to do next. It's not good for writing for you. Like I do not recommend writing an essay with AI, but I do recommend being like, I have this idea. What should I do with it? And AI can give you a couple options, or like, here's this piece
Yeah.
I finished. What's missing? Or like, what did I make a mistake? Like those sort of things AI is awesome for. But when I've written entire pieces with AI, it's just, you could tell it's AI.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is some stuff you can do if you keep, and I'm sure you've done this, if you keep developing the prompt. And apparently I just am learning about this. If you have to tell the AI to play a role. I didn't realize that, but apparently it's really important to tell it to play the role of a, you know, like a professional copywriter or author of some kind. And the more specific you get about who the AI is pretending to be and who the audience it's addressing is. Probably that makes a big deal in how it filters out its own information and experience.
Oh, that's really interesting to know because I'm taking a writing class and I tried to have AI help me with some ideas and it was like just spitting out junk. Like I was like, none of this is usable.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm looking at this course, and the guy showed that he shows the difference of he did a prompt where it would ask for places to visit. I forgot what city it was. He said within a certain city, like places to visit, and he just did like a general open prompt of like, what are some great places to visit, and it gave like the most common tourist sites. And then he said, be like I forgot what it was, like a food expert and on local unique places or like he gave it a very specific role to play and
Mm,
it found much better places. The same exact AI gave a completely different list of output and it was much more interesting.
I love that. Yeah, it's definitely worth fine tuning and being like, no, not like that. Do
Yeah,
less like cheesy or whatever. Like I give it prompts all the time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean you can even like I think there's one with Chat GPT, you can make your own. I actually just for the fun of it made my own therapist. I programmed it to all the different things of how I wanted it to deal with me and
Oh,
issues, and it was interesting. I mean, it kind of I felt like it was kind of spitting back the stuff I fed into it initially. Like it still wasn't like. I mean, I don't know. Like if you go to a real therapist, do they actually ever give like original things like you hadn't thought about? Like I don't know if a therapist would serve that function of giving you ideas of how to solve problems.
sometimes, but usually she's just like, hey, here's what you already know about yourself. So let's work with that.
Yeah. So like helping you to like analyze what you already know about yourself or to see it more clearly.
Yeah, she tries to like have me use my inner resources to solve a problem, rather than being like, here's a new thing that I mean, sometimes she'll give me new ideas, but most of the time it's like, let's work with what you already have.
Yeah. So the book. Uh, so what led you to like going from doing the challenge of 50,000 words in a month to actually publishing a real book and getting it out in the market and selling a book?
Yeah, in 2016 I started writing professionally as a dating writer, so I published 300 articles and I was like, this publishing thing is really interesting. Like, I wonder if I could do that with my book and like this book that I'm creating. And I thought that, yeah, I just thought it might help people. That my experience, just like I experienced in the rooms, sharing my story helps others connect, identify, feel less alone. And I thought that it would be helpful for others. And it
Oh,
was just a
yeah,
passion that I had. I just really wanted to do it.
yeah. Like, so did you is it self-publishing or did you go to a publisher and like
Yeah,
how did it work?
I got a hybrid publisher. So there's three paths. There's self-publishing, hybrid publishing, and traditional publishing. Traditional is the traditional book deal where you get like paid to create the book. Self-publishing, you pay for everything yourself and you don't have like any of the benefits of traditional. And then hybrid is you pay for it yourself, but you get a lot of the benefits of traditional publishing, like distribution, and they do your cover, they edit it for you, they manage your data online. Yeah. So I did that hybrid route.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
really good. So now the book is it out already? Is it available?
September 3rd.
Oh, that's great. And is it going to be available on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, Simon and Schuster. It's all over, so it's very exciting.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and you're gonna planning to be like a bestseller up front in your category.
I
That's
doubt it, but since it's
yeah,
since it's hybrid publishing, it's not going to be like in bookstores around the country like, some books are, but that's okay. I mean,
yeah. Well,
it's really
if
hard.
we can, yeah, if we can get the word out, people if enough people pre-order it, you can get. Apparently, that's the best way to become a bestseller is get a lot of pre-orders.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's the hope, but yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to be getting my book out there, so it's exciting for me.
That's really so. Who would the book be best? Like, who would you think would best benefit from reading it?
I think young adults anywhere from like 18 to 35, probably the best audience for it because it's really a coming of age story, I think anything younger than 18 is probably a little young to read it. It's pretty spicy, but yeah, it's about coming of age and growing into yourself, and it ranges from age 13 to age 29-ish. So it's
Yeah,
and I think people in recovery especially, but anyone who struggles with like relationships or drugs and alcohol or body image issues, I think any of that will would be a fit.
yeah, yeah. It's sometimes it seems like in modern times, like a lot of these, I thought a lot of problems that people in my generation would kind of just go away because there's so much connection and information available that, because it just used to seem like you wanted to be part of the in crowd because you wanted to act like you knew like what was cool and what was going on. And now like everybody has access to all the information in human history, and but still, the same problems, maybe even worse problems have come up in more recent generations now.
That's a really good point that like the internet didn't fix everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like it made new problems. Now you have social media uh, causing even worse problems, and you think that people would know better than to get into like drugs and especially smoking cigarettes. You think that people would know better, but apparently, like the little jewel thing got a lot of people hooked on nicotine. Um,
Just be cool for teenagers. Like that's a cool thing.
yeah,
Even though there's no long-term studies of like the impacts of vaping.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Although, yeah, but I feel, maybe like it seems like kids today are like more kind of open about how they feel or something like that. Like there seems to be a little bit more awareness of psychological issues and mental health issues and feelings. So maybe that's a positive thing.
that's very true. Yeah, Gen Z is definitely more open to therapy and like talking about their feelings and embracing mental health issues that they can deal with.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to, like, do you have a website that people can go to read about your story and the book and things like that?
So it's GINELLETESTA.com, and I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, just Janelle Testa, so people can connect with me on all those platforms.
Okay, like so on Instagram it would be like the @ sign, then Janelle Testa would be your name there.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, and okay, yeah, and the what was the website again?
It's just my name, JanelleTesta.com.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. Okay, so yeah, we'll put that in the show notes for the podcast.
Awesome.
Um, okay, yeah, that's great. So yeah, Janelle, thank you for joining me today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.